Well, welcome everyone on this very frosty evening. I'm glad we're all warm and inside. And I'd like to begin, as I am wont to do, by sharing a little something. 2000 New Yorker, The Shouts and Murmurs, which is the humorous column, and this supposed new app from Kindle where you can basically readers who want to learn more about their favorite poet can simply type in a name and get directions to the poet's former home. So for example, if you type in Allen Ginsberg, you get "You who take Route 80 past the saxophonist screaming fever dream factories, belching steam like hooch smoke out of the tenements, who turn on Passaic Boulevard, your hands gripping the wheel as tightly as if you're holding on to an ODing junkie as you joyride past the neon flashing traffic light, the giant donut beckoning smackheads with dreams of sugar, who phone from the corner and I'll throw down the key after I put it in the toe of a sock that's paced through restless burning streets and tied off the arms of sleepwalkers and blackjack cops with quarters and been stuffed in pants to woo sailors and been worn across borders with peyote insoles." If you type in William Carlos Williams, you'll get "So much depends upon a Red Lobster on the corner of SR 22 and Hopkins Road. Drive past it, and there's no way to turn around until you hit Greenville. Make the turn, and we're the white mailbox on the right, glazed with rainwater." If you type in Dylan Thomas, "Do not go gentle when you make that right, or you must merge into the flood of rushing lights. Six goes for miles, and you must push into the night. And when you see an alehouse called the Robin Hood, drive past it, though I never could. Then make a right, and we're at 32 Milkwood." If you type in Robert Frost, you get this: "Two roads diverge at the yellow light. Alas, you cannot travel both. If you pause and look down the one that goes right, you'll see a really dreadful sight. The seething sprawl of suburban growth. Congestion is the modern blight. Traffic, like urban planners, is often dense. Two roads diverge at the blinking light. Go left, for God's sake, don't take the right. It will make all the difference." And lastly, peppered with a lot of footnotes that I won't read, if you type in T.S. Eliot, "Once in Jersey, the cars come and go between the turnpike and Ramapo. Exit the Cal de Ulmus, past a withering stump, an unmarked grave filled with dry bones. Make a left at the dry creek bed and turn onto 54th Street to the house where the red lantern throws its radiant light upon the wall." All right, I'll read one. Footnote 11. "My house. Arrive at 7:30. Our phone is 917-555-0133. Much appreciate if you could bring a dessert. Keep in mind that I'm lactose intolerant." So yeah, that was a keeper. I haven't found anything near that excellent recently in the Shouts and Murmurs, unfortunately. So we're blessed to have warmth and shelter and two fabulous poets tonight. First is Kerry Loughman, who's a retired educator and photographer. Born and raised in Jamaica Plain, she has lived with her family in Brookline for many years. She writes about memory, art, family, and nature in the city, looking for small, transient moments of beauty. Her work has appeared in the Muddy River Poetry Review, Mass Poetry's Poem of the Moment, and The Hard Work of Hope, Nix's Mate, What Rough Beast, Pandemic's Journal, and the Main Street Rag. A member of the PoemWorks community, she is currently wrestling with her poems to turn them into a book. Yay. Please welcome Kerry.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you all for being here tonight. So in 1982, Seamus Heaney came out with an anthology that they called The Rattle Bag. And in their introduction, they explained that these were their favorite poems that they'd had piling up on their desks over the years. Rather than organize them by theme or historical period, they decided to organize alphabetical or first line. And they wanted to let the randomness carry the reader into places where, and I'm paraphrasing here, each poem transmits its own signals, takes its own chances in a big, voluble world. My part of this reading is new poems, old poems, some never read, some very well voiced, mixed themes in a very mixed bag. And I hope you don't mind taking a few chances with me. My first poem is something I just finished. So this is a real chance. Thanksgiving turkey on the 66 bus. I've wrapped you in loving layers, 4-fold aluminum foil, 2 red BU beach towels, and a capacious canvas tote. So we board, and I do not pay fare for you, my 11. Usually morning sees the 66 bus full of academic types and domestic workers, masked and resigned to travail. In the afternoon, if you time it wrong, you get unruly preteens just released from school, deliberate. Night ride home, you can study the plastered, puckered mouths of girls, testing their popularity in selfies, bathed with a smug fluorescent light. But now, I and my fully cooked, basted bronze turkey are delighted to see the bus. So, as our 2 Latino teens sprawled on plastic like princes on thrones, chatter happy, their families' oversized laundry bags taking up no space at all. This morning, I stood as the riverbank's guest, forward full of gratitude for this place where ducks bathe in concentric ecstasies of spray, and small children take their feet off the pedals, wheeling exuberant under the Echo Bridge at Longwood Avenue. Life should be this simple and obvious. I've spent my life complying with, anxious to not appear more than I am, not putting myself forward. I'm not ungrateful, just unworthy of the smell of Thanksgiving and the grace with which one of the teenagers slides from his joy near the door to offer me his seat. And
nice.
My next 3 just address what we always address: place, home, the imperfect family. My father said, stay away from those girls, classmates from St. Thomas Aquinas High, who hung out playground behind the public school. Those girls looking for more, smoldering in cigarette smoke, defiantly chilling in Budweiser bought at Bob's Spa by Peggy's older brother. Sly girls who 1 block from school rolled plaid pleated uniform skirts 12 inches above, shimmied, good vibration on a pocket transistor radio. Scornful girls who put dimes in their penny loafers and teased the brill-creamed boys about their crew cuts. Oh, you'd look so like Paul McCartney if only you had bangs. They studied cool in the white t-shirt and the way Twiggy modeled androgyny into an op art. Thick mascaraed eyelashes and glossy white lips played their faces for kabuki girls looking for the summer of love any place and always, and maybe finding it under the Loughman. In my attic bedroom, I learned about sex from Webster's unabridged dictionary, flipping methodically from one unrequited word to the next. Fireflies. With the shadows just out of reach of municipal streetlights, dusting the blacktop backyards where our mothers sat summer nights, webbed aluminum chairs circled tight. We played hide and seek in those shadows, holding our breath beside parked cars, ears crickets click, a friend's giggle, gauging the distance to home in the rise and sigh of a mom's lament. Honeysuckle twined on chain link edged those shadows, its sweetness as brined in the neighborhood map as we were, held captive on a short fears and fears belief. We ran barefoot through Jamaica Plain, courting the bruise, cut skin, aching for real battles to choose and win, out of reach from reproof and bedtime's binding finish line. Like beacons, their cigarettes glowed, fireflies we chased with washed out peanut butter jars. Their mother voices softly lying, their mother love precast in shade.
Mm.
The river, my mother. She, emotions singed like January held tight in the riverbank's fist. Washed bedding surrenders on her shoulders as she knuckles bitterness into their correct corners. Her mother taught her that way of starched lips, sweat-soiled currency, using her allotted 5-cent bus fare for day-old fig pastry crusts, licking guilt from fingers all the long walk home. Mom's need played fiercest as she twisted my hair tight around plastic curlers, wishing me a Breck girl of bound. But my locks betrayed her, long and lank, full of consequences, unplayed. In college, I cut them into a hedgehog's butt of bristles and paper cut her schemes. My son wears his hair as he pleases, long, dark, and growing fast, moving past Mother Ice on the rapids. The next two are ekphrastic poems, and we're gonna try to share the screen here. So I beg your pardon if it takes a minute or two for me to do this. It's my first time. Yep, there I am. And where's my picture? Richard, I've messed it up already. Well,
Share screen.
you know what?
Go to your desktop.
Yeah, but I can't find it on my desktop. But not the, let me read the first one and then I'll go to the second one because I can't see the first, which is too bad because it's an interesting image. But anyway, oh, there it is. Never mind. Sorry, guys. Technical but different. Screen. My desktop. Share.
There you go. Sometimes computers have
Get
stage
bigger.
fright.
Well, they're not seeing much of this screen.
That's good.
All right. Good enough. This image, Chinese dress. It's a fabric sculpture by Caroline Cheng at MFA Boston. There's an epigraph by Caroline Cheng. These outfits from afar look just like, but when you look closely at the butterflies, they are all unique because this is China.
Mhm.
My sleeves hang low. The weight of 10,000 porcelain-fired butterflies dragging me under. Slow slide of syllables, breaching surface, exhalation, voice in concert. We migrate as one indigo-hued burlap sea and neatly alight on this primly white museum wall, making an imperfect square as long, suffering, absence, informing the whole. Next, we have this one. No, wrong one. Don't hire me to be your IT person. Never did. Still can't make it bigger, but here we go. Reflection. Self-portrait 1948 by Hyman Bloom, MFA Boston. Alone in an underpainting of raw umber and gray, acceptable to the academy. I inhale orthodoxy, but will not bow down. My soul is flayed and found wanting, hung out like a calf for slaughter. I sacrifice myself to color. Joseph's coat, shredded. Sprout, red feathered rooster combs. White bone dust of my ribs fertilizes a flowering cadmium red light. Curiosity pulses a spine bent from standing in an ecstasy of vermilion. Soaring, my brain turns in pearly, and I'm not afraid to share visions that transgress boundaries. My testicles disappear in a Mars black that says, the only true progeny is pigment, brushstroke, and line. Okay, let's get rid of that.
Hmm.
All right, now we're back to normal, I guess. Got a couple of poems that verge on the Ars Poetica / persona line. First one is called My New Crush. Calls in a molasses drawl. Insinuates illicit. Practices pause. Hones pain on the sharp angles of his hominy handsome face. Zooms a rusty pickup down bone-jarring roads of raw. From under nicotine scabs. Builds a loam of grief from silt and shame and clay. Coerces a crow to caw in my far and wide. Hard consonants tinder my heart and slowly flame on his fanned cheek. Fusion. 1. In the latest photos from the Webb telescope in space, 2 foundling stars, like in just about every Greek myth, while more are born wanting in a spider web of brilliant zephyr light. Once we could see only one. Now we see quadrillions, and still we miss the other one. We always miss the lesser, miss the outlier just beyond. 2. In the black hole of my peripheral sight, cobalt blue crew cut man bursts from a tarp tent origamied into tree shadow, speed wheeling a bicycle through a galaxy and chokeberry. 3. Will my words ever fall so fecund and fire? The light, when sunset briefly sketches a vertex on the of a leg on my scuffed kitchen table. Geometric glow glass vessel, apricot particles falling, flickering scant, charged might colliding, goosebumps riding, rapture. My last 3 poems deal with grief, aging, and how to reframe your tragedy in a way to move forward.
Mm.
Rilke at the Muddy River. This path daily, stone dusted, offering up ghosts and a dwindling map of rippling water. I trod alone with needy heart. Relentless grief spins me, breathing my own carbon. No music, no companion, no sight. Invitations to tenderness. Carmine leaf, maybe Tupelo. Dying naked on slim stem. My torso straightens, preening, pinned, alive, a heron thinning. The next one's a little silly, but poem on my 70th birthday. How beautiful the October leaves on my maple tree. I say mine because the town tree specialist let me choose it 15 years ago. For years, let me water the needy roots of leaves curling into small calico patches, of arms surrender to color, forest green centers, then cadmium red bleeding into a persimmon flame lace. Dying slowly and with gusto, unlike humans who 70 looks much like 69 in the mirror, but in the bones, who knows? I wrote a poem called Osteoporosis, which will see publication in the Main Street Rag this year. And that's a win for the old girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
When beauty transfigures waste, a private philosophy of heaven can be the ability to stand on one foot while tying the laces of my other sneaker in the air, balanced, not found wanting, a heron ready to take flight. And my last poem is that poem, Osteoporosis. Winter strips bark from the white birch. 3 graces splayed on the edge. Wind plays requiem with flesh. Black fungi, the sound of bronze borers, eating through cambium, sapwood, heart, revealing pith of the matter, never spent but rearranged. My limber lost bones spew calcium molecules, change mass unseen, empty to tears, barely held together in skin. Thank you.
Wow, really wonderful. Let's unmute and take a moment to respond and appreciate. I really enjoyed you just the canvas of your work is just getting bigger and bigger. It's so surprising and defies expectation when you launch into something and it just goes places. Really, really enjoyed that.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for everyone in the chat, which I will read now because I couldn't pay attention to it before. And now, should I introduce Heather?
I can do that.
You can do that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Um, So our next featured poet is Heather Nelson, who's been a student of poetry since college, where she developed her thesis project under the guidance of C.D. Wright and Peter Giese at Brown University in 1991. She returned to writing in 2011 and has since been published in Ephraxic Review, Lily Poetry Review, Spoon River Review, and others. She currently leads a local free write, runs writing workshops for high school students, and hosts a book group in Cambridge. She has been active in the Boston area literary scene since she began writing and has taught classes at Grub Street, planned events for Lit Crawl, organized author talks, and other activities. Please help me welcome Heather.
Much, Richard. I feel like I kind of put in my bio, so that was a little bit much. I just want to say, Kerry and I talked about getting ready for this reading, and I loved her work when we were talking about it, but just she's such an amazing reader, and her work was so beautiful. So just kudos to you, Kerry. I think I'm so impressed by what you managed to get done tonight. Richard, thank you so much for hosting us. Your community that you build here is wonderful. I'm going to move the computer a little bit just to see if I can get my face at the right angle for me. Okay, that's right.
Very good.
So anyway, I'm reading some poems that I don't think I've read before, but I want to, and they're kind of starting in when I think everybody else was either suffering or maybe making sourdough bread, but I was doing a weird thing. I was looking out my window. I was kind of pretending my block was a Victorian novel. I was thinking, nothing's going on in my life, so I'm going to make something up about, the place that I live and who I am. And I think I also maybe thought that when I got on instead of older, and I had to be disabused of that notion. But first few poems are kind of in this fantasy perspective, so I will read those to you, and you can see what state of mind I was in back then. So my real street is called Austin Park, like Austin, Texas, but this poem is called Austin Park, like Jane Austen. Austin Park. And the epigraph is, when she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous, from Pride and Prejudice. On her block, she's seen as a gentlewoman, not the ardent young beauty Henry James placed in front of the crowds, but the pale, stiff Brahmin he revealed as the lady who pulls the strings. Driving into Boston a year ago, took her permanent position in the New Cambridge, star of a period piece about herself and her block. Turns out only windows are of historic interest. Time-lapse photography reels back a century. These two-story brick houses fill with a working class, create a scene. The homes are siblings, raised at the same time for the same kind of people. Play the film forward, watch the buildings fill with professionals. Doctors, evangelists, a gay gardener and his partner, 3 first-floor business bros with a widescreen TV, 4 ladies of a certain age. She sits at the head of a very long table, faces her neighbors like distant dinner guests. Some nights she'll sit there for hours, flipping through Ms. Magazine. In the window across the street sits the young swain, Venetian blinds raised, laptop open. 25, he wears his blonde hair in a bun. She distinguishes the weeks by small changes in neighborly relations. He started walking into her story. Last week, the wave on a Saturday stroll. Next, a good morning by the door of his Civic. Sunday, half abashed glances. Last night, when they both looked up, he let his hair down. That's my thieving imagination on the street. The next poem is called From My Window.
Hmm.
From my window. As a girl I would find, looking out the window, I'd been left. From my window, it seemed the whole block shared my dream. We'd hear the truck coming. We'd run for ice cream. The season starts with a trip to the lake. Will those senior boys invite me to partake? At last, cold beers, shared towels on sand. Sun seeps through my eyelids. I'm finally tan. Cross the age line, throw the car in reverse, lurch back in time. Can't I swim just as well as before? I used to turn heads. I ought to turn more. So I feel. And the last one of this part is called The Grande Dame Throws a Block Party. Her out of her head, she resolves, spreading 16 outfits across the king-size bed. She finally chooses the skirt that is most commodious, reminding herself comparisons are odious. 5 p.m., her Austin Park patio is at capacity. Young squires line up, talk of Flaubert and poetry. And one for romance, hoping for hoofbeats, found only garbage cans. Their attentions are fleeting. Her consorts are allured by the sound of fresh voices. The young ladies are heard. To these fresh-faced neighbors with more recent diplomas, she generously donates her last 2 Coronas. Their cul-de-sac lanes. She pockets her calling card, looks inside for her gains. A hard copy of Berlin Alexanderplatz to loan, Simon Pierce beer glasses for excellent foam, while across the street, the rising royals of the block have camping chairs and warm rolling rack. To forestall his just inside, he looks conflicted, but comes along for the ride. Once in the parlor, he looks across the street at his own room, his view, his customary seat. She asks quietly, "Did you ever think you'd find yourself here?" He shakes his head and says, "This is the house I've been watching all year." As you can see, I've been kind of getting into rhyming too. Sometimes when I am struggling with a feeling that I think is kind of ridiculous, but it won't go away, I find a rhyme is a good way to kind of address it because it's still there, but it's kind of funny to remove. Next one is called Just Fall. I'm not a lever. I haven't lost it. My unbearable lightness hides in the closet. It stays married to my fears. We get heavier every year. While my instincts fight, I'll slip into the night, meet Robert Johnson, as he might have sold his soul to play guitar in his car. If my desk were a portal to a Brooklyn beer hall, if I were taking a cruise to Turkey this fall, then at 6 o'clock, I'm sure I'd be able to put tacos for 5 on the table, to still the harsh voice of judgment that I hear every night, to hear the voice of my longing, know that it's also. And so playing around a little bit with kind of American sonnets. Let's see, this is one called Blushing Hydrangeas. When I was the maiden in the ode, the arcade was indoors. Quarters went further then. August gobbled up the youthful food. Today I linger in the arbor and the wide shade of grape leaves, tantalized by the fruit dangled for other lips. Mouths open, blues blossoms wait for the bait. Perhaps a country lad in a blouse of flax, lute hanging lax, eyes upcast. Every throw is always the first. Every day relates to our birth. So as for a lot of people, another thing that was happening for me during quarantine was work and lots of Zoom meetings and somewhat fraught Zoom meetings, meetings in which people became clear, but there wasn't so much I could do about it. So here's a poem about that. It's called Virtual Accountability Group. I spoke first. I'm sorry, I spoke again, stumbling over my words. I never wait long enough because I want an acrostic, a separate apartment, a book of my own. I know a great shortcut, a wrinkle in time. Skip the center. COVID-19 dumped me at the tail end of middle age. I object. The ceiling on my life is lower. I'm sitting on the ground. I protest. There's gravel in my shoe. My 52nd spring is lost. Step back. Stop comparing your loss to that of the young. Your years are all fungible now. Why leave the house? Because I can. Because a small sailboat might arrive at the door one morning to take me away from my husband, my children, this life. At home, nothing's wrong, but nothing's exactly right. Everyone's remote, wanting more control. I stand outside closed doors, waiting, not listening. My virtual accountability group knows exactly where my money. Nevertheless, I keep showing up every day against the same background. So I remember back when this horrible war in Ukraine was starting, I was going to a lot of readings wherein people were reading their really strong responses, horrified, but I couldn't seem to write about the war itself. I couldn't write a good poem about it. So I asked my friend Eric, what should I do? And he said, well, Heather, why don't you write about the war within yourself and you will access, the war somehow or another. So the war within myself was about work. So that's what I wrote about. And this is called War Poem. My colonoscopy memoir, Behind the Brown Curtain, my modest rage at obscurity, reminiscent of Putin. Putin's got issues too. Same shit, writ large. Who comes first? Who's in charge? My little soldiers rise petulant every morning, demanding attention despite how many heads need to go on a pike before they admit that I've always been right. My dossier is a testament to my slide down Maslow's pyramid of needs, the ego side. Concession sets the crosshairs of my aggression. Forced altruism can't engender compassion. When push comes to shove, I demand more recognition, just a little more love. I'm fair, fat, and 50. I've always been hungry. How can I be this well-fed and still angry? A shark circling the tank. I'm obsessed with my rank. A washed-up imposter. I've been put out to pasture. At home, I chew brigadier bones. Bare-chested on horseback, I ride through my city, avenging all slights, no matter how petty. And you can imagine that being in that kind of state of mind, I don't stay at work. I leave. It's a poem called Mindfulness Plus Beauty. There were a lot of slogans at my work. So one of the slogans would be mindfulness plus beauty, but this is about me. It's the second Monday after I quit. 5 years is epic. I can rest for a bit. Indulgences are strategic when shown the exit if I wear a target. On the morning of my petty, I can't find my glasses, can't seem to get ready. I take a Xanax, try to keep my gaze steady behind the wheel, text goodbye to the family. At the beauty spa, I extend a swollen foot to the technician, who kneels at her habitual spot. So I'm deep in thought. My relaxation imperative seems overwrought. I leave with toes the color of wine, not blissed out or bitter. I'll settle for fine. So, doing this past summer, kind of trying to find myself again. And one of the places I went was Chicago with my friends, and wrote a poem called Chicago Handshake. So the epigraph is by Carl Sandburg. Come and show me another city with lifted heads singing, so proud to be alive, hoarse and strong. Carl Sandburg, Chicago. Each skyscraper is a landmark, a boast. My shoulders are broad. I'm taller than most. I dare a Frenchman to climb me. He won't fear the stink. I raise the stakes, challenge him to strong drinks. There's a wait at the handlebar to be served by punk rock pescatarians, voices lost in the noise. Chicago's handshake is a shot of liquor with a taste of rubber bands, chased by 8 cans of old style, drink of the heartland. In scorched dry August, I've come to make a deal. I won't care about how I look, but it matters. The coarse city sings back that feelings lack power. To impress the world concretely, try huge vulgar towers. The guide calls it contextualism when each building speaks. When one levels up, another extends its reach. One is kind of a Chicago poem too. My friend gave me a prompt, Let the Prairie Speak, so that's the title, and then the rest is my poem. Let the prairie speak. I rise at the wind's command. It's not a decision I make. It's not me doing the making. My agency is faked. Rock to find out what's inside. What's under my flat surface? What do I have to hide? I'm the sky overhead to the worms and the ants. Align with my roots. Be sucked in by my plants. The groundhogs don't quibble. Their life is short and unfair. They bring to lace in my hair. Buildings on the prairie are made to rest. Prairie makers return to dust. This poem is a little bit older, but I like it, and it just got into Nix's mate, so I thought I would read it from when I was out in Aquina. Gayhead Beach. Even the earth's face is a man's face, priest and indifferent to the spectacle created by his nakedness. Exhaustion and striving lie in the earth's profile, gouged red, striped white, slathered brown, and grim-visaged war between origin and appetite carves his features. His face is proud in a grim way, beautiful in the bitter sense. Flayed by wind, he weathers repeated blows. To each lash and lull of the pewter waves capped with pyrite, tenders his hostility with resignation. And the last one I'm going to read is a kind of a persona poem. If I can't be who I want in the real world, I'll be the way I want in imagination. It's called Erica Ventricosa, which is there. The literature of Italy makes me want more than one name. I'd like to pass for Sicilian. It's early afternoon on the plaza. Only the pizza shops are open and only the tourists are out. I'm writing new Italian literature over the old. I locate my fantasies in places, raft my wishes onto the side of a Vesuvius from which I never have to run. My literature of Italy has Aperol spritzers on every page, or ragu each afternoon. My Italian opus is florid, just like me, heated and greedy, menopausal, seen from the sea. Thanks so much, everyone.
Wow. You're kind of like a latter-day Dorothy Parker, but without the self-pity or suicidal ideation. Really very enjoyable and witty. I was wondering what you were going to rhyme pescatarians with.
It's a tough one.
It is. It is. Well, I'm sure you'll get some more feedback as we proceed with our open mic. And I want to introduce first up, Jonathan Abel.
What fun, how difficult to follow. Actually, Richard's introduction with the instructions from Alan gimmicked, and a couple of the other poems made me think of this one. Hey, Mr. Kerouac, can I call you Jack? When I first read On the Road, I lusted for that run-on freedom, seeking the zone, the bebop of bebop. But I'm older than you ever were, irresponsible, burning, gasoline, feckless, leaving hearts, homes all over the country. Babies, girls, all drop of the hat bums. Just car and road and distance calling. No place without getting tired of it. The sun protests like my crazy, never learning to listen.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, we have Linda Lamenza, who will be one of our featured poets next month.
Technical moment. I'm going to read to you life advice from my mother. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Life advice from my mother. You need some good decaf black coffee. You must never allow a knife. Pieces of anything should be no bigger than the tip of your pinky. Don't smash the dough or the cookies will be like hockey pucks. You should always blanch and have on hand. Go to the Italian deli and buy a couple of anchovies. Use Crisco, it softens. Sit light, do not use paste. Keep AIRY, don't pack it, or it will taste like sawdust. Weighing down eggplant gets rid of the bitter. Relationships are like flowers, ignore them and they die. A word of caution. Foam, when proofed, throw it out and start over. Yeast is critical. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. Thank you.
Oh, true.
Yes. Up next, Robbie Gamble.
Thank you, Kerry and Heather. That was a beautiful reading. It's great to be here on a chilly night. This is a recent poem. It's called When I Wrapped the Blood Pressure Cuff Over His Crude Swastika Tattoo.
Mm.
I wasn't shocked. Rather, I registered several points in disappointment on the clinical enmity scale. He had seemed mild-mannered when I elicited his symptoms, and I imagine it's easier to ride the rudder of professionalism when your own wan skin tone matches the patient. I was glad my Black, brown, and Jewish colleagues were, though no doubt they all had their own encounters to slough off. He could stroke out any day now, and sure, I might get doored on my morning bike commute, mortality being the great leveler we choose to ignore, like that moldering sandwich at the back of the fridge. But what's to cure when hate gets injected by a cellmate, bunking down into a shaky lifetime of inadequacy? Love half rhymes with salve, a word which is not derived from salvation. And yet I would strive to anoint him with any prescription I could muster to dissolve symbol.
Wow. Such compassion. Wow. Thank you, Robbie. Up next, Judith Hoyer.
Hi. I liked Linda's poem, and I changed the poem she read. So this is called Therapy. Tied up, without diamonds, a cappella, with fish in mind, with fingers for forks, with edible violets, with long wooden spooning, with hands, elbows rolling, palms pushing back in a wake of white dust, riding the waves, yesterday's loaves, to beat the band, mistakes boiled down in aluminum clad, against the grain, guided by uncorseted stresses and hairnets, with a dash of authenticity, emptying bottles, squeezing cheesecloth by the seat of my pants, bowled over by red hot induction, the daily edition, nothing parsley can't fix. Thank you.
Nothing parsley can't fix. I love it. Thank you so much. Up next, my favorite ex-nun, Sharon Foley.
I'm Bridget. She's the, it was her feast day on February 1st. And in Ireland, it marks the end of winter and the heralding in the hope of new growth in spring. And she was very noted for the miracles she champion of women. On St. Bridget's Day, I hold a relic, a sliver of her bone, no bigger than a hangnail, wrapped like a badge, the edges stitched with green thread to help me quell my fear of lightning. I weave Bridget's cross today, fingers on the straw, crisscrossing and turning them to make the central knot, to seek her heart that heard anomalies like lepers thirsty who want to celebrate with beer, and the woman who did not want her child. I pray, let me hear and heal.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Okay.
Up next, Hannah Wadsworth.
Thank you. And this was very, very enjoyable. Thank you, Kerry and Heather, for your wonderful words. Also, honeymoon. It was Greece with Santorini's white buildings spread over the island like frosting, sprinkled with cobalt shutters, flower-filled windows, all washed in the heat of spring moving into summer. Dressed in black visiting graves, the sky blue sky wide open over a caldera that hides an active volcano now dormant. Buildings planted willy-nilly up to the hill's peak. A gathering for a friend's party. Earth music of the kithara, lyre, reedy aulos, a feast of spit roasted lamb, spanakopita, baked orzo, dancing, stories, Greek wine. In truth, it was our honeymoon, our last night, a wall of windows overlooking the Aegean. The full moon washed over us, bright enough for us to stay awake in our own heat.
Gorgeous. Wow.
Thank you.
I'd want to be there. I wasn't intruding on the
Sorry.
honeymoon. Up next, Kathy Whittam.
I'm getting there. Okay. This is called Obad. Grammy, my sleep-dusted grandson, calls from his bed this morning, and I come to perch on the footboard. Augie still clouded in his blanket. He pops up, flip-flops head to footboard, then again lies still as the lake at dawn, and long, belly down on his main loose sheet, feet inconceivably farther away than a month ago. After a while, his legs crawl away from sleep, squirming over the edge of the bed. Comes to lick the feet hanging, salty and loved. She laps them gently, repeatedly, until her languid tongue lands, forgotten, on his ankle. Then, as sudden as the day, he's upright, ready for action. Thud of bare feet, floor, detaching boy and dog.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, if I'm not missing anyone, I'd like to read a poem that I just wrote this week. And it's called What Matters.
Me.
What's that? Did I forget somebody? No.
There's echo if everyone could mute. I don't know if everyone is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is still recovering from a bout in the ring in Gray's workshop, and it's probably going to go back into the ring sometime soon. Called What Matters. Take water and bread from me, and I'll feast only with my eyes on the bird-promising sky. Paying attention lights the dead wood of my heart where little beauties are concerned. A good word for God is not me. Now my body has no boundary that is not a geography of praise. I'm filled every day with oxygen that just left off being inside a leaf. When yesterday brings its thieving brethren, I'll have dinner on the grill, a glass in hand, ready to hear tomorrow sing for her meal. I'll ask Mother Wind when I can publish her music. All I need for inspiration is a warbler in the topmost branch, there being no other muse than what the earth supplies.
Beautiful. Good.
So that's our evening of poetry to warm our hearts, if not our souls.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was such a pleasure to be here.
Yes,
If people want to,
including your technical advice.
Yeah,
okay,
it was a good combination of poets, different than, don't know.
Yeah, Heather and I tried to figure out where we had convergence, and we decided we just didn't, and it had to be fine.
that's fine. Yeah.
Great.
I'm proud to have read with you, Kerry. You're
Oh, I'm so glad it's your fault. You asked me if I wanted to do it. Yeah, sure.
I
So
wanted
thank you
to
very
read
much.
with you. That's why I asked.
All right.
It was more
you.
than fine.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So coming up next
you.
next month, Friday, the 3rd of March, we've got Linda Lemenza and Elizabeth Sylvia.
Woo, Linda.
Mhm.
Hey, Linda.
All right.
Where